Here we go.
I begin with two questions inspired by the greatest moment of my sports watching life. First question by email from Casey from Nashville. Are you paying Vandy's running onto the field fine? And from YouTube, this is at VHF2582, Skip. Are you going to donate to the Vanderbilt Athletic and NIL program? Before I answer each of those questions, please allow me to explain why Vanderbilt 40, number one ranked Alabama 35, was the greatest upset I have ever rooted for, the upset of my lifetime. My Vanderbilt Commodore football team shocking the entire college football world by hanging 40 on the same Alabama that had just beaten Georgia in the game of the year. Football Factory Alabama, led by Heisman favorite Jalen Milroe. The Crimson Tide of Bear Bryant and Nick Saban, 25-point favorites in Nashville over my doormat doors. The Where's Waldo of the Southeastern Conference, the one nerdy, geeky, bespectable academic institution more qualified to win Jeopardy than a single game in the football conference in America, the NFL Pipeline Conference, the football powerhouse conference, now featuring Texas and Oklahoma. Oh, say can you see the SEC? I saw a clip of a Monday caller to Paul Feinbaum's show, a caller whose accent dripped Alabama, who went on a rant about how Alabama just can't lose to Vanderbilt, the quote-unquote ugliest little sister on the block. Paul Feinbaum then went on to say that Alabama fans would rather lose to Mercer or Slippery Rock than to Vanderbilt. I cannot impress upon you how much deep down satisfaction listening to that call gave to me, a Vanderbilt graduate. We had lost 23 straight games to Alabama, often by something like 40-0. They have won 18 national championships in football. In our 134 years of playing football, we had never, ever beaten one single top 5 team, let alone a number 1 team. We were 0-60 against top 5 teams. I'll say it again, 0-60 against top 5 teams all time. Yet we didn't just steal one from Alabama on some fluke play or some robbery call. No, we kicked their asses. We outplayed them. We beat them on the stat sheet and on the field. We were clearly the better team that day. Last Saturday, October 5th, 2024, a day that will live forever in the minds, hearts, and souls of Vanderbilt Commodore alumni worldwide. And yeah, you can make a case we've never really belonged in the SEC in football, but the irony to me has always been that none of those football factories has ever really belonged in our league academically. To me, Vanderbilt University is the greatest educational experience in America. They call us the Harvard of the South, but to me, Harvard is the Vanderbilt of the North. To me, we are slumming to be affiliated in any way with Alabama. Even just to be in a football conference with Alabama. The truth is, to even be in the same sentence, any sentence with Alabama it's just beneath our dignity. I mean, do you realize how much more severe our academic admissions requirements are for athletes than Alabama's? Do you understand how much higher our degree of difficulty is and how much smaller our potential talent pool is in football? We need smart kids who can also play football. And there just aren't enough of those to go around among Vanderbilt and Duke and Northwestern and Stanford. Yet Duke and Northwestern and Stanford don't have to deal with the week after week onslaught of an SEC football schedule with the inevitable injuries that just rip into the depth we usually don't have. Yet our brainy little overachievers just rose up and beat big bad Bama at its own game, SEC football. We won the ultimate culture clash. Private school rich kids over a football factory masquerading as a quote-unquote school. Seriously, how many Alabama students would have had the high school grades and the test scores to get into Vanderbilt? I mean, seriously, 2, 3? A few years ago, I pulled every string I could pull at my school, Vanderbilt, to get the valedictorian of Beverly Hills High School into Vanderbilt. And I failed. Her father's a prominent doctor. Her mom is a prominent scientist. And she wound up at Cal because I couldn't get her into Vanderbilt. Yet for once, my Vanderbilt Commodores football team ruined the Saturday night of all those Bama fans whose very lives are attached to and dependent upon their football team. We stained their season. We made them feel the agony we have so often felt after they saunter into our stadium and trample us and leave us for dead. And you know who set the tone for what happened last Saturday? Legendary Alabama coach Nick Saban, St. Nick, who said a couple of weeks ago that Vanderbilt is the only place in the SEC nobody fears playing.
But the only place you play in the SEC that's not hard to play is Vanderbilt.
That's because visiting SEC teams always have more fans than we do. And that's what happened Saturday at our little on-campus stadium. And guess what? The moment that game ended, up on our scoreboard, we showed that video of Nick Saban saying what he said about us just to make all those Bama fans in our stadium wallow in it like it was their own vomit. All those thousands and thousands of fans who had driven to Nashville for a big party weekend to celebrate their number one ranked team were going to attend their own funeral in downtown Nashville hotspots on Saturday night, and I loved it. Talk about justice. Put that in your pipe and smoke it, Saban, or choke on it, Saban. My only regret about last Saturday was that Saban wasn't still the Alabama coach. And when it ended, our students got to act like other SEC students and storm the field, bully for them. Then they did something I thought I'd never see in my lifetime. These students were so clever, so smart. They tore down the goalpost. Then they carried it out of the stadium, across campus, and all the way down West End Avenue toward downtown. No doubt passing staggering Bama fans in catatonic states. And then our kids threw that goalpost right in the Cumberland River. 134 years of frustration right in the river where it belonged. All those years and years of misery inflicted upon us by Alabama right in the river. It might as well have been an exorcism. Would you believe I was doing an interview with a reporter on Monday morning, and he asked me, which meant more to you, the Cowboys pulling it out last night in Pittsburgh or Vanderbilt beating Alabama? What? Yes. I did grow up in Oklahoma City as a Dallas Cowboy and an Oklahoma Sooner fan, yet no game I've ever watched either of those teams win ever meant remotely as much as what I experienced last Saturday. That's because I got to watch my Cowboys play in 8 Super Bowls and win 5. And because I got to revel in my Sooners winning 6 national championships just in my lifetime. Watching my school, those doormat doors, the ugliest little sisters on the block beat number 1 ranked Alabama gave me the greatest sports watching pleasure of my lifetime. And here's what you have to understand. Very few Vanderbilt students could have had my perspective when I first set foot on campus back in September of 1970, many moons ago. Many of my fellow freshmen had grown up rooting for Vanderbilt or dreaming of going to Vanderbilt, maybe because their parents or relatives went to Vanderbilt. I had not dreamed of going to Vanderbilt. The prospect of me going to Vanderbilt in 1969 was as preposterous as Vanderbilt beating Alabama last Saturday. Neither of my parents finished high school. Both struggled with alcohol. My father left when I was 16. No way my mother could have afforded to send me to Vanderbilt. Before 1970, I only vaguely knew of Vanderbilt, and only because of its basketball teams that featured Clyde Lee, who did win back-to-back SEC Player of the Year awards, and then he went on to be the third overall pick in the NBA draft. I was just your basic spoiled OU fan, spoiled Cowboy fan, planning to go to OU like all my friends were going to OU until my journalism teacher entered me in this scholarship competition for sports writing at Vanderbilt? Seriously? She said I had to apply to and get accepted to Vanderbilt to even get in the scholarship competition. No way, I thought. And I got accepted. The winner of this Grantland Rice Scholarship wasn't chosen until May of my senior year, so I forgot about it. Trust me, out of sight, out of mind. Then one night, I came home from baseball practice, and I saw a note my mom had left me on the kitchen table that somebody had called from area code 615 and said to call back. Wait, that's Nashville. Did I win that scholarship? The Grantland Rice Scholarship is a full ride, room, board, and tuition for 4 years. So sight unseen, I closed my eyes and I went to Vanderbilt, the football opposite of Oklahoma. I went from spoiled to embarrassed right away. Joke in the dorm hallway was how bad we were, how much we sucked at football. And I began to write for the school paper at Vanderbilt about how hard it was for Vanderbilt to compete in the SEC in football. Yet, my freshman year, I did keep hearing about this greatest win in Vanderbilt school history, this magical night just the year before when Vanderbilt did beat Alabama. It was Commodores 14-10, but later when I got to know my friend Pat Toomey, he put that game in perspective for me. Pat played in that game. Then he was drafted by the Cowboys, 6th-round pick, became a star, played for the Bills and then the Raiders. Pat says that Alabama team just wasn't that great. It went 6-5. Quarterback wasn't Joe Namath or Kenny Stabler. It was Scott Hunter. He'd go on to be no more than a 6th-round pick. Still, after that game that night, Bear Bryant said that was the low point in Alabama football history. The Crimson Tide had lost to lowly Vanderbilt, the one SEC school that was actually a school. Now, understand, Vanderbilt's baseball teams won the SEC all 4 of my years at Vanderbilt. Hey, we've been to the College World Series 5 times since 2011. We've won 2 national championships and finished runner-up twice in baseball. And we are a national power in golf, but yeah, I know, it's a rich kid sport. Then again, my senior year, we did win the SEC in basketball thanks to Jan Van Bredekoff. And that year, we did beat Georgia in football, though Georgia did finish 3-4 in the conference. So we've had our happy little blips under Steve Sloan and George McIntyre, especially under James Franklin, who once told me he was committed heart and soul to Vanderbilt just before he went to Penn State. In 2005, we did have Jay Cutler, who became the first Commodore to ever win SEC Offensive Player of the Year. Yet, if you look hard at it, Jay Cutler's starting record at Vandy was 11-35, and against the SEC, he was only 5-27, which brings me to the reason we beat Alabama Saturday. As I watched our opening game this season, our season opening upset of a pretty good Virginia Tech team, I sat back and thought, well, wait a second, who is this guy? By the end of that game, I was tweeting that a Nashville legend had been born, that Diego Pavia would give my Vanderbilt Commodores a chance to win every game. That included Alabama. I raved about Diego Pavia near the end of last week's show, as you might remember. Never seen anything like him. He played 2 years of quarterback at New Mexico Military Institute. Then he played 2 more years of quarterback at New Mexico State, where he inspired big upset wins at Auburn, at Liberty. Diego Pavia just knows how to play quarterback with his arm, his legs, his brains, his heart, his guts. He is the ultimate trash-talking battler who almost delusionally believes he cannot be defended at no more than, 6 feet tall? Not that quick, not that fast, not that powerful, arms just okay, almost certainly won't play pro football, yet he's at his best on 3rd and 9. Have I ever come to love Diego Pavia on 3rd and 9? He just believes he'll convert. He makes me believe. He makes his teammates and his coaches believe. And every Vanderbilt alum and student, we all believe he will convert every 3rd and 9. There is no way Diego Pavia would have chosen to transfer to Vanderbilt if it weren't in the SEC. Pavia just wanted to play SEC football, even for the doormat doors. Finally, Vandy being in the SEC was more strength than weakness. I have no idea how much NIL money we paid to Diego Pavia, but I do know Vanderbilt hired 5 of his New Mexico State coaches, including his offensive coordinator, Tim Beck. Yep, we sold out for Diego Pavia. You want your coaches, young man? You got them. Just come and play at Vanderbilt for the final year of your college eligibility. Just put us on the national map. Thank God for the transfer portal. No way we beat Bama without a 23-year-old from Albuquerque. But you can ask my wife, Ernestine, about this. I told her before last Saturday's game, I had a very good feeling. After all, we were coming off a bye after taking number 7 Missouri to double overtime at Missouri. And Bama was coming off the game of the year and having to get back up to play the Harvard of the South. The ugliest little sister on the block, Vanderbilt. I just had a feeling. Big bad Bama won the toss and, of course, deferred and gave the ball to Diego Pavia. Big mistake. Did he ever send a first series message? 7-0 Brainiacs. Then Jalen Milroe threw an on-target pass that got tipped up in the air. Pick 6, 14-0. No, stop. Stop the presses. It wasn't 14. It was 13-0. I was watching the game with my daughter, Hazel, our Maltese, and I screamed bloody murder only that once during the game when my kicker Hook missed that extra point. Same kicker who ended our double overtime loss at Missouri with a pretty easy miss. No! I added a few other choice words only Hazel has ever heard me say. And I thought to myself, please don't let that missed point come back to haunt us. But then Diego Pavia began to dissect Bama's defense like they were frogs in a Vandy biology lab. And by the way, I stupidly once upon a time chose to take freshman biology with all those private school pre-med kids from New York and Atlanta and Dallas. Best C I ever made in my life. Diego Pavia went 12 of 18 on 3rd down on Saturday. Think about that, 12 of 18, and we controlled the clock 42 minutes and 8 seconds to only 17 minutes and 52 seconds for big, bad Bama. We mostly kept the Heisman favorite and his 17-year-old phenom receiver on their bench. And when I knew we finally had it for sure, came late in the 3rd quarter. It was 4th and short, 36-yard line. Pavia thought about flipping it into the flat for the first down, and at the last split second before he got blasted, he cut loose deep for Junior Sherrill, who stretched and fingertipped it in the end zone, 36 yards, touchdown. I leaped out of my chair and made Hazel dance with me. Literally picked her up by her front paws and made her dance with me. She thought I was out of my mind, and I was. When it ended, get chills. I got tears in my eyes. And I got text hitting my phone like never before in my life. People who know me knew how much this meant to me, knew this was way bigger than any Cowboy or Sooners game. And I loved every last one of them for the congrats they immediately sent to me. Thank you all. The two biggest upsets I'd ever rooted for in my lifetime were first when Joe Namath's Jets, as 18-point underdog, shocked the Baltimore Colts in Super Bowl III. I had a Namath poster up on my bedroom wall. But as much as I loved Namath, I had no stake in the Jets. Then there were my 2000 Oklahoma Sooners. They were 11.5-point dogs to Florida State in the national championship game at the Orange Bowl. I was there. We had a Diego Pavia at quarterback named Josh Heupel, great college quarterback. He's now becoming a great college coach. But hey, I'd already experienced 5 Oklahoma national championships, so that was kind of old hat. No, this was it for me. In my life, I've never felt such pride, such pure joy that I'm still feeling this very second as I speak to you, because I know how long we suffered. I know the prices we paid for that moment that I still feel at this moment. Now back to Casey's question. I'm pretty sure my school can afford to pay the field storming fine without my contribution. And back to VHF 2582's question about me contributing to Vandy's NIL program. I did make on Monday a video asking alums to give to Anchor Impact, our NIL fund, so that we can even hope to consistently compete with the Alabamas and the Georgias. We are going to need another PAVIA soon. But I will continue to donate, as always, to Vanderbilt student media. That's the way I pay back the university that snatched me right up out of a broken home in Oklahoma City and made my career possible. P.S. I love Diego Pavia plus 12.5 points Saturday at Kentucky. Okay, this is from YouTube, from Kairanjo. Skip is basically saying Bronny is terrible, doesn't even belong in the G League, but he's such a nice kid. He will be a good player. What is this nonsense? How is Skip turned into a LeBron banana boat rider? No, Kairanjo. That's not what I said. I do think Bronny's a great kid. Who doesn't think that? I also said he didn't look like he even belonged in the Summer League, let alone the G League. But I was willing to give him the benefit of the doubt because maybe, just maybe, he would rise to the level of NBA competition, and maybe playing alongside his dad would bring out the best in Bronny. Okay, so now I've seen him in 2 preseason games, and man, it looks like Summer League all over again. Bronny's made 1 basket, 1 layup late in his first game, and that's in 2 games. JJ Redick continues to rave about what a disruptive defender Bronny can be. And he did have those 2 hustle blocks from behind in his first game, sort of mini chase downs. But in all scathing honesty, I'm sorry, I'm not seeing the explosive athleticism and that almost psycho tenacity that's required to be a lockdown NBA defender. So everybody got their feel-good moment. LeBron and Son on the court together first time in the preseason game. It was the second one, but as I keep saying, now the kid has to start backing it up. And as yet, I have seen no evidence he can back it up. So I guess I just hopped right off the banana boat. This is via email. Palmer from Washington asks, could it be possible that Jayden Daniels ends up being better than Lamar? Early gut feeling, no. not in the regular season. So what, Palmer? You predicting Jayden's going to win 3 regular season MVPs? Because Lamar, of course, has already won 2, and who knows, could win a couple of more before he's through. But what I can't yet know about Jayden Daniels, can he be better than Lamar in the postseason? As much as I love Lamar, as much as I've defended Lamar, I cannot defend his 2-4 postseason record. And the fact that he still hasn't made it to a Super Bowl while Mahomes has played in 4 and won 3. And he, obviously, as you remember in the AFC Championship game at Baltimore last year, Lamar tried to be Mahomes and paid the price for that. So all I know for sure so far about Jayden is, man, I sure was impressed with how he performed under those Monday night lights against Joe Burrow in Cincinnati. I saw big stage clutch. Jayden's Commanders are 6.5-point underdogs at Baltimore Sunday. So I'll say Lamar and company win the game, but that Jayden plays very well and that his team covers. I'll take Jayden in those 6.5 and run with it the way Jayden runs. Michael from Nigeria asks, do you think Russell Westbrook can have an impact on the Nuggets and finally win a championship this season? Michael, I appreciate the question. I was impressed with just how much Ty Lue got out of Russ as a 6th man last season. But I remind you, the Clippers did not keep Russ. So now at almost 36, Russ is on his 6th team, and I do not think Russell Westbrook will have championship impact on a team that, I remind you, just won a championship 2 years ago. I'll say to Nikola Jokic what I've said to several other superstars: be careful what you wish for with Russ. Superstars get blinded by the triple doubles. He averaged 4 times in 5 years. That was impossibly great. We get that, but I'll say it again. Russ is a solo act of a stat machine. He plays hard for Russ, for his stats, not so much for winning basketball games. He's still too much of an out-of-control turnover machine who can't shoot. That can be a lethal combination, and he can still be bull in China shop. See basket, attack basket blindly. I've just never thought Russell Westbrook was a winning basketball player. Just doesn't have a point guard's feel for controlling the game. Supremely athletic to be sure, blast to watch, but not ultimately to play with. Kevin Durant left Russell Westbrook. James Harden left Russell Westbrook. Paul George left Russell Westbrook. Chris Paul couldn't make it work with Russell Westbrook. LeBron and AD pushed the Lakers to go get Russ, then very soon pushed the Lakers to please get Russ out of here. I'm pretty sure Ty Lue didn't fight to keep Russ. So now Joker is the latest superstar to get blinded by Russ's triple-double legacy. Joker is such a great passer, such a student of the game, that it won't take long for him to say, wait a second, this guy can be a nightmare to play with. He's just what the doctor ordered for the Nuggets. Dr. Frankenstein. From YouTube, from Wallace Jones, 5855. Do you think the Cowboys jinxed the organization signing Dak to the huge deal? It seems like it's been downhill ever since, injury-wise and how we play. Look, I don't know about jinxing the organization, Wallace Jones, but I do know it was a devastatingly bad idea to make Dak Prescott the highest paid player in pro football history. And you know who agrees? The NFL's best receiver, CeeDee Lamb. What did CeeDee's mom post right after that Green Bay playoff disaster last year? She posted, Dak isn't it. Very simple, very direct, very to the point. Dak isn't it. Think she just came up with that on her own out of the blue? No, you can bet she'd heard her son say exactly the same thing in those words. And trust me, Dak heard all about what CeeDee's mom posted, probably from his relatives. Remember what happened on the Cowboys' first third down of that game against Green Bay? Dak and CeeDee failed to connect. And as they left the field, Dak said something to CeeDee that CeeDee did not like. CeeDee responded. And when CeeDee went to the very end of the bench and sat by himself, Mike McCarthy, for the first time I can ever remember, left his usual sideline post and walked all the way back to the end of the bench and tried to talk CeeDee just back into the game. The next day, Michael Irvin said something to me that was very interesting. Michael said that no matter how hard Troy Aikman got on him, he just took it and never fired back, never tried to defend himself because Troy was the quarterback who could choose to throw it to Michael or not throw it to Michael. So even though CeeDee is the latest to wear the hallowed number 88, Michael Irvin, the greatest 88, did not like it that CeeDee had returned fire at Dak, then made a show of going to the end of the bench and brooding about it. Michael definitely defended Dak and blamed CeeDee. I thought about that on Sunday night when CeeDee let Dak have it on the sideline for the interception Dak had thrown in CeeDee's direction. This, of course, was caught on the Sunday Night Football camera. And lip readers translated what CeeDee said to Dak as subpar throw. Subpar tonight is what CeeDee appeared to be saying to Dak Prescott. Dak appeared to just ignore what CeeDee was saying, did not respond that I could see. But frankly, subpar was putting it nicely. It was an inexplicably bad throw that had come on top of the fumble Dak had lost as he got front side sacked, not blindsided, front sided. Dak could see it coming and he still couldn't protect the football. So 2 red zone turnovers had potentially cost the Cowboys 14 points already at that point in the game. So that's why I was so torn, so conflicted over what CeeDee said to Dak. CeeDee was so right, and yet, to Michael Irvin's point, so wrong. I wish I could somehow pour CeeDee's clutch fire into Dak, but unfortunately, Dak plays the position, quarterback, while CeeDee plays the dependent position of receiver, so Dak just outranks him. No, CeeDee, Dak ain't it. But we're stuck with him, so we have to make the best of it. You cannot disrespect him. You cannot publicly undermine his leadership, his authority, his very position by showing him up in front of the cameras on the sideline during Sunday Night Football. That is potentially lethal to a team that already has enough problems. Man, I can only imagine what CeeDee thought when Dak then forced up a throw to Jayden Tolbert that was intercepted. That was turnover number 3 against a team the Cowboys should have beaten by 3 touchdowns. To Jayden Tolbert? So from day one, I've struggled to love Jayden Tolbert, 3rd-round pick out of South Alabama. First thing he said to the Dallas media after he got drafted was that he looked forward to changing the culture in Dallas. What? Talk about audacity that he couldn't back up, hasn't backed up. Jayden Tolbert ran 4.5 at the combine, and I haven't seen a whole lot of quickness or speed or rare athletic ability or gymnastic ability. I just haven't seen anything special about Jayden Tolbert, who has so far appeared to be vintage Bill Parcells JAG, just another guy. Then from the Sunday night broadcasters, Mike Tirico, Chris Collinsworth, I began to hear this new theme of how much Dak loves Jayden Tolbert. He does? I hadn't heard that before. That had to come from Dak's sit down with said broadcasters before the game. I'm assuming Dak had raved about how hard Jayden Tolbert had worked with Dak through the offseason. Did that mean CeeDee, who missed training camp, of course, holding out, hadn't put in all that much offseason work with Dak? I don't know. But you know and I know that CeeDee's mom was listening and reported back to CeeDee that it sure sounded like Dak had a new favorite receiver, especially because Brandon Cooks is now out. I'd also read that Tolbert considers Dak like a big brother, quote unquote. And it sure started to feel Sunday night like Big Brother was making sure he threw it to Little Brother a lot. Jalen Tolbert wound up with 10 targets on Sunday night at Pittsburgh to CeeDee's 9. And in the second half, after CeeDee had gone subpar on Dak on the sideline, CeeDee caught one ball for 9 yards. On the game's final 2 plays, when I thought Dak had to go to CeeDee, had to give him a chance in the end zone, Dak twice went to Jalen Tolbert. The first time, Tolbert looked like he could be open along the back line of the end zone, yet Dak fired low into the grass, and it looked like Tolbert pulled something trying to go down and get it. For a moment, it looked like Tolbert was coming out of the game, but he stayed in, and on the game's final do-or-die play, Tolbert ran all the way down the goal line from far right to far left, and Dak threw him a perfect ball versus tight coverage, and little brother hung on to it for the game-winning touchdown. If that throw had failed, we would have heard a whole lot from CeeDee after the game, a justifiable tirade. Instead, we heard nothing because Dak and Jalen Tolbert had won the football game. Now, maybe you think I'm making way too much of this, but trust me, I'm not. This is an edge of cliff situation, potentially a Josh Allen versus Stephon Diggs, only there had better be no way the Cowboys are going to get rid of CeeDee, not after he signed a new deal that's very close to Justin Jefferson's top wide receiver deal. I thought CeeDee actually deserved more than Justin Jefferson. So this situation could fester into Dak forcing more and more throws to Jalen Tolbert, pressing, misfiring when he does decide to throw in CeeDee's direction. And obviously this conflict could descend into CeeDee starting to sulk and run half-hearted routes. Looming are the Detroit Lions. At home Sunday, Lions 3-point favorites. Then it's at San Francisco, at Atlanta, Philadelphia, Houston, and at Washington. So if I'm Jerry Jones, I get involved right now. I try to get Dak and CeeDee to sit down for some kind of session mediated by Jerry Jones and see if these two can make some kind of peace and begin to function like the dynamic duo that Belichick compared to Montana and Rice just before the season started. Jerry Rice's mom never said Joe isn't it, and I'm pretty sure Jerry Rice never told Montana that was a subpar throw. I'm pretty sure that never happened. So now for the silver lining irony is that 1 year ago right now, after the Cowboys had gotten humiliated at San Francisco, who can forget 42-10, CeeDee complained about getting only 5 passes thrown to him, and Dak or Jerry or somebody listened. That's when CeeDee took off and became the NFL's most productive receiver. Next 4 games after that debacle in San Francisco for CeeDee last year, CeeDee caught 7 for 117, 12 for 158, 11 for 191, and 11 for 151. Man, oh man. But I am so torn because I believe CeeDee sees this exactly the way I do. Dak is not it. Dak is 2-5 in the postseason because Dak is way too often subpar. I am so with you, CeeDee Lamb, but we also share this, my man. We are both stuck with Dak, so we have to make the best of Dak. You have to grin and bear it. You have to bite your tongue, especially on the sideline. You have to just keep running your routes all out and hope Dak Prescott can get you the football. This is Evan from Albany, New York, who asks, if you could make a dinner bet against LeBron, what would it be? Good question. Love it. Simple. That LeBron won't shoot 80% from the free throw line this season. Michael Jordan averaged 84% from the free throw line for his career. For that matter, Larry Bird averaged 89%. Not once has LeBron James, the NBA's all-time leading scorer, shot 80% or better, in any one of his 21 seasons. He's a career 74% from the free throw line, which is pretty pathetic for a guy so many people laughably call the GOAT. LeBron, they're called free throws for a reason. They are free, unguarded from 15 feet. Bet you a dinner you can't shoot 80% this season. Deal? John from New York asks, Skip, when will the NFL world finally listen to you about what you've been saying for years about Aaron Rodgers? Appreciate that, John. So the Jets got rid of their second biggest problem the other day. They fired Robert Saleh. From the start, when I watched Saleh on Hard Knocks, he just seemed to be in over his head, trying too hard. Nice guy, better suited for running a defense than overseeing an entire football team. But the main reason the Jets are 2-3, the main reason I predicted the Jets would not make the playoffs, is the quarterback whose QBR ranks 21st in the NFL as we speak. 21st. The quarterback who threw 3 interceptions in Sunday's loss to the Vikings, whose final interception ended the game, and who, vintage Aaron Rodgers, threw up his hands as if his receiver should have come back and fought for the ball that was clearly underthrown and off target. A pretty easy pick for Stephon Gilmore. He should be still a Dallas Cowboy. Don't get me started on that. But that was classic diva Aaron Rodgers showing up his receiver. How many times have we seen that in Aaron's career? Blame deflecting. Ultimate media manipulator, blame deflector. Aaron is now going on age 41. I believe he still wants all the fame and all the fortune without having to pay the prices that Tom Brady did at this age. Brady's fire still raged at this age. Aaron's is flickering. MESS, 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 mess. Daniel Oliver asks, would you bet the over-under on Wemby winning a championship in the next 5 years? That is a good, hard question. So last season, Wemby was obviously Rookie of the Year, should have been Defensive Player of the Year because he ran away with the blocks title. Yet the Spurs went 22-60, same as the year before. So Wemby had no significant impact on wins and losses last year, which baffled me. So obviously, CP3, Harrison Barnes will help bring some veteran know-how to this team this year. Surely they'll win, 10 more games, 12 more. But could CP3 and Harrison Barnes be serious contributors to a championship team in, 2, 3, 4 years? I seriously doubt that. So as much as I have loved the Spurs over the years, as you probably know, I've never been the biggest Pop fan. Just gut feeling. He was in large part a product of Duncan, Ginobili, and Parker, especially of Tim Duncan. Underrated great leader, all-time great leader. So I'm not convinced that Pop's the right coach to take Wemby to a championship level. Will this young man be regarded as the best player in the league by next season? Not this one, but next year? I say yes, he will be. But a championship inside of 5 years? I just don't see it. This is Anthony Ventrella from Boynton Beach, Florida, who asks, after the Steelers game, how do you think your Cowboys defense will hold up against the 3-1 Lions, who, by the way, Anthony, are coming off a bye? Anthony, I don't think my decimated D will hold up at all against Detroit. I was shocked. I'm still shocked at how bad Justin Fields looked against my Cowboys. And I don't think my inspired defense had all that much to do with how bad he looked. Justin Fields just looked so shaky from the start. Not much accuracy or touch or even poise. Is he looking over his shoulder at Russell Wilson about ready to come back? And by the way, Najee Harris looks slower than Zeke. Now here come Jared Goff and all his weapons at receiver, at running back. I could see Detroit putting up 40. Jahmyr Gibbs is just hellacious good. I've thought that since his days at Alabama. Remember, the Lions got robbed last season on a ridiculous call on a 2-point conversion. Remember the end of that wild game? They will be looking to get even. They wanted Dallas in the playoffs last year, and now at least they get Dallas in the regular season this year back at the scene of the crime. Lions favored by 3. I say they win a shootout by 10. Blake from Norman, Oklahoma asks, do we see back-to-back weeks of Skip's teams beating the number 1 ranked team in the country? What a great question, Blake. What would be the odds that the 2 college teams I love, one by birth, one by diploma, would have the opportunity in back-to-back weeks to upset the number 1 team in the nation and to pull it off? 1 billion to 1, trillion, gazillion to 1. This Saturday, my Sooners, fresh off an upset win at Auburn and off a bye week, are 14.5-point underdogs against Texas in Dallas. And yes, Blake, I do have a very good feeling about this game, just as I did before Vandy, Bama. But here's the difference. Diego Pavia is a 23-year-old in his 5th year of starting college football games. My new OU quarterback, Michael Hawkins Jr., is a true freshman who started his first ever college game at Auburn. Yet Michael Hawkins Jr. handled himself beautifully. He just has this calm coolness about him. He also has an Olympic burst when he leaves the pocket, has a pretty good, very accurate arm. So far, so great. And he will endanger himself to get the ball over the goal line by any means possible. And finally, because his dad played at OU and then in the NFL, this young man is not afraid of the stage or the moment. The guy we OU fans thought was going to be the next Heisman Trophy winner at our school, Jackson Arnold, quickly lost his poise and his accuracy. I am still dumbfounded about what he couldn't do. He was so bad that his ineptitude actually camouflaged the fact that our defense is pretty good. It's underrated. We'll take the ball away. See the pick 6 at Auburn. If Michael Hawkins can just protect the football and make 3 or 4 splash plays, we will hang right in this one. And I remind you, Quinn Ewers hasn't played in a month, and now he has to be looking over his shoulder at Arch Manning. Maybe Quinn Ewers will press as he's thrown back into the fire in Dallas against Oklahoma in the Red River rivalry. After all, we did beat Quinn Ewers last year. And maybe Sarkisian will reach desperately for Arch to save Texas in the second half. Maybe Texas will just get shook. Michael Hawkins will not. Remember, Michael Hawkins Jr. was recruited hard by Alabama. That's it for today's episode. Thanks to Tyler Korn for producing, to Ernestine for overseeing, and to Hazel for approving.